afternoon, good morning to everyone. Happy to be here once again. So today I'm just going to share our experience and insight on our deployments. So far, we've basically worked on 2 deployments, one in Rwanda and currently implementing one for the Bank of South Sudan. Pretty much similar projects with some differences, obviously, like George and Steve were saying. Each country basically comes in with their own set of requirements, even though everything basically stems from the open source project, MojaLoop open source hub switch. And then from there, we do a number of customization based on technical and very specific business requirements that the adopters basically require. So my talk today basically is titled MojaLoop in Production, what you get out of the box from checking out the repositories, and then what you need to build. I'll share our experiences in Rwanda and South Sudan. So my name is Alan Kajangwe. I'm the co-founder and the CEO of Wiredin. We are an engineering company based out of Kigali, Rwanda, with business partners in Tokyo, Japan. So Wiredin was established in 2014 with a business partner who's from Japan, also a software engineer. Today, our team is made up of 42 engineers based out of Kigali, Rwanda, and then we have a smaller team in Tokyo, Japan. Like I just said, we've implemented 2 national switches as of today. One is live in production in Rwanda. For those who know about this project, the platform is called eCash. That's the national payment switch for Rwanda, and then we are currently also implementing the IIPS for the Bank of South Sudan. And then for some of the work that we've done with the community, I lead the open banking workstream, and then also, of course, we've also done some work on Tazama, integrating it with the MojaLoop platform. For those who have basically been with the MojaLoop, you've heard of Tazama. That's the fraud monitoring system. All right. So basically, what works out very well out of the box is basically the infrastructure deployment base. This basically helps you quickly put up the switch in a number of days. If you're experienced with it, but we should usually, from our experience, even from the first deployment here in Rwanda, it took us about 3 weeks to put up the hub as is before we started looking at the technical and business requirements, like I just mentioned. So this basically helps quite a bit. And then, of course, you have the TTK, the testing toolkit, which also basically helps validate your deployments, right? And then also shows you how the DFSPs basically would be connecting to your switch out of the box, right? And that is before you start talking about specific requirements in terms of messaging protocols that your specific country might be requiring, as I'll just mention in a minute. All right, and of course, there are some gaps, but these gaps basically do not stem from the fact that the switch itself is incomplete, but these gaps come from the fact that depending on where you're deploying, depending on your clients, you will have specific technical business requirements that we had to deal with. We had to, for instance, put up build from scratch pretty much an ISO 222 connector that also had to implement the XML digital signatures for message integrity and non-repudiation. This was already built into the RNDPS blueprint, and the MojaLoop version at that time did not have an ISO 222 messaging interface. So what the team basically here was doing was to build that connector between the participants or DFSPs and the MojaLoop switch that was the core of the system. And then, of course, there are some hub admin and DFSP portals, also very specific to business requirements. We had to build auto reconciliation for end-to-end daily reconciliation, automated, where participants basically would upload on a daily basis. Today it's being done twice a day. So twice a day they upload their transactions as based on the current view in their specific core banking systems, and then the system basically will match what it has. Basically match three ways. You have the sender, what the sender DFSP has, what the switch has, and then what the beneficiary DFSP also has in terms of transactions that were approved in that particular period. And then from there, we're able to show various through the portals again. So the hub admin sees this, the sender DFSP sees this, and also the beneficiary DFSP. So those two participants basically obviously will only see the transactions that belongs to them. But then they will also see whether there are any discrepancies that they need to pay attention to. And of course, this from this platform or module, the logical next component would be a dispute management, right? So from the automated reconciliation, this module is able to create disputes automatically where a dispute is warranted based on the results of the reconciliation, but it also allows for participants to initiate their own disputes, and then the life cycle of the dispute basically goes through the system. Evidence is shared where it's due, and then the hub operator sees all this, can chime in and provide guidance, provide their own evidence to help resolve those disputes. Additionally, the other thing that, so even though the MojaLoop hub basically comes bundled with the settlement service, this of course does not integrate with the RTGS at the central bank, right? So that integration also had to be built from scratch, basically, but the results of the settlement are already known within the MojaLoop switch itself. But now what you need to do is create the specific messages between the hub and the central bank RTGS system. And then, of course, like I said before, there's also a Tazama integration that we were doing because the business requirements also require that before we deploy, there has to be a fraud monitoring system in place. And Tazama basically comes in and is very well integratable, very easily integratable with the MojaLoop switch, I have to add. All right, so the other two things that we had to do were mostly on the observability. So out of the box, basically, there's a number of things that you get when you're monitoring the health of the whole system. You have basic infrastructure and health metrics. Obviously pod and node service level statuses. And then you also have some generic dashboards and alerts. But then depending on your adopters, you will have some that will have very specific requirements, and some of those had to deal with business requirements, right? So, for instance, the hub operator being our switch here, they needed to have business-centric dashboard, right? So the ability to be able to track some financial metrics, to meet with the SLAs that they have. For instance, per the FSP transaction successes, right? They want to know how many transactions participant A was able to have successfully in a specific period, the latency, the failures that they had during that particular period, so on and so forth. And then, of course, the alerts would be tied to some of the scheme rules that are in place. And then, of course, the other, I think this was the last one, the most recent that we had to deal with. Of course, for any switch, for any basically public infrastructure like this one region deployment is not sufficient, right? You always have to have a multi-region deployment, right? For disaster recovery, for obvious reason. If your primary site goes down, you want to be able to to shift to your secondary with a very, very minimal downtime, right? Because especially if you're already in production, you're handling hundreds of thousands of transactions per day. For your site to go down more than 10 minutes, that is going to be felt across the board. So obviously, the default Helm charts do not come with the at least the versions that we were using do not come with that multi-region environment. So we had to basically come up with some custom built Helm charts to help us basically handle that multi-region deployments, especially so for the stateless services. Obviously, this is easy to do, but then when we're talking about the core databases, Kafka, this is your components basically that hold your data. You don't want to have any differences between your primary site when it goes down, and then when you pull up your secondary site so that your transactions can run from there. We have to be careful that we do not leave any data behind because that obviously will lead to some serious business impact. All right, so our insight basically, like George and Steve was saying, open source basically will eliminate your vendor lock-in. For some that have already run some payment switches, you already know that if it's not per transaction license economics that you have to deal with, sometimes your customization roadmaps will be dependent on your vendors, right? Depending on their other priorities. You might, of course, especially coming from a small country like Rwanda, this we have felt quite a bit because some of the vendors for the payment switches that we've run in the past would not look at the market here as significant enough to warrant top priority when it came to implementing some of the change requests. But then what you get, obviously, with or rather what you have to take on, you obviously have to consider that the obligation to independently secure, patch, and scale the system forever. But then this is also what Steve alluded to. In some cases, you might not have to do that because of how large the modular community is. right? And how constantly updated the hub is being maintained. You might not have to, basically in some cases, you might not have to worry about this. But then if you do, this will come with some cost, obviously, right? Some cost of the team that you have to have in place, even after your system integrators that would, build your IIPS. Once they leave and they have basically parted their knowledge to your team, then you have to have a number of, engineers on staff to continuously patch, build, extend your deployment. All right, and that's all I had to share with you guys today. But I'll be happy to answer any question if I did not go too much out of my allocated time. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Alain, for that fantastic look and, just painting for us the reality on the ground that, you get some things out of the box, but you have to do some customizations. Markets are different and nuances must be considered. And that also takes some time and skills. So you must also, sort of invest on the capacity. And that's why MojaLoop is for. The accelerator program actually builds the capacity of local SIs to be able to respond to any bills that are required. So we have one question from Olu on the chat. If guys, if you have any other questions, please put them on the chat. We'll be able to read them out. So his question is the XML digital signature connector still being used for RNDPS? And if yes, any plans to phase out its usage by the FSPs to reduce additional points of failure?
So I'm not quite sure I understand. I caught the question, but I'll try to answer as I've understood it. So right now, the ISO 2022 with the XML digital signature component attached to it or a header attached to it, this recipe comes from the blueprint. So this is not a negotiable, at least in Rwanda, it's not a negotiable, because that's the way the central bank has opted to communicate with the switch, for participants to communicate with the switch. And then obviously the XML digital signatures come in order to assist in making sure that message integrity is assured, but also non-repudiation, which is a very critical aspect of an instant payment. So not sure, but you can basically maybe rephrase your question if my answer is not satisfactory. Yeah.
All right. Although I don't know whether that addresses your question.
Yes, it does. I was actually thinking the digital signature, the way I had it was more of a kind of converter. But from the way Alan actually explained now, it's more of a kind of ensuring non-repudiation and ensuring some sort of integrity of message exchange. I was thinking it's more of a kind of message version conversion or message type conversion, but it's well understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Elaine. If you want to know a lot more about Wired In, we did do a spotlight on Wired In our July newsletter. Please go and learn more. Reach out to him and his team if you want to sort of connect.